Okay, well, welcome viewers. This is part two of our look at the county judges race. We have Dutch King with us this afternoon. Welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. King. How are you doing?
I'm great.
Are you ready for this to be over?
Absolutely, absolutely. But it's been fun, but it's hard work because there's just a couple of us working, and it's, just fun.
I want to get a couple of maybe uncomfortable things out of the way before we get going. A little housekeeping, you could say. You didn't want a real face-to-face debate. Your opponent wanted that. And I'll ask him the same question: Is the blood between you guys so tainted that you all couldn't sit down, or you couldn't sit down with him and have a face-to-face debate? Why?
Well, I'm gonna be truthful, and I'm gonna tell you like it was. And a lot of people probably don't know this, but in 2012, when I was running the first time for county judge, the chief law enforcement officer of the county, Gerald Robinson, called me up one morning, and he told me, he said, "This is Gerald Robinson, and I want you to know that when you win the county judge's race, that I got 4 go-to people at the road department, and you can't touch them. And if you do, I promise you, you will never, ever get elected to anything in Jefferson County again." And I'll tell you, Byron, I was so shocked by that. I really didn't know what to say, because I'd never in my life ever had anybody do that to me, especially coming from the chief officer, police officer in the county. But then, just to make sure that I understood it, that afternoon we were lined up for the rodeo parade. And I was off, I think it's Martin, where Chief Pontiac is. He and his entourage were right there off Main. And I was about 2 blocks passed on down, and I was lined up. Scotty Ray and his wife were driving my truck, and my sister and 5 or 6 others were in the back, and had the door open. I was talking to Scotty inside the door, and I'd already told him about that, and he's a big supporter of Joe Robinson, always has been, but he's also a good friend of mine, and he was helping me. And I told him about that, and I told a few other people, and everybody was kind of, I don't know if they really believed, but they knew I wouldn't lie, but they didn't know what to believe. Well, I saw him walking in down towards me, and he kept walking. I said, "He's coming down here." And he came down there to my truck, 2 blocks, and he, in front of Scotty and his wife, everybody, he said the same thing. He said, "I want you to know what I said on the phone. I meant it. And you can't touch my people at the road department. And if you do, I promise you won't ever get elected to anything else." And that time I just kind of walked around the door and got right up in his face. And I said, "Sheriff, if you don't want me to tell you how to run your sheriff's department, don't even think about trying to tell me how to run the county judge's office if I'm fortunate enough to get elected." Because I'd won the primary, but I had an opponent in the general election. And since that time, so help me, he did everything my 4 years as county judge to undermine me. He was horrible to deal with. And he never stayed within his budget hardly. And he was always wanting more money, always wanting more money. He was building a new sheriff's office, always wanted money for that. And, we tried to help him as much as we could, but, we were limited on our funds, and we just couldn't give him everything he wanted. And he made my life miserable. And, he has totally disrespected me from that day forward. And I've gone out of my way, to try to, when I see him, I still speak to him. I go up to him and make him shake my hand, in front of people, just see what he'll do. But he wasn't real friendly Saturday at the Founders Day parade.
Does that equate to not being able to debate him face to face?
Well, I just don't like to be around him. Okay. He's truthful.
All right. He tells a variation of that story.
I'm sure it's a variation.
He said that he endorsed you based on the fact that you would not fire those people. I think that's kind of the way it went. And very quickly after you took office, you did fire them.
So he's already telling lies. I let them go before. I gave them their notice in December the 22nd, all 4 of them.
But
And
you
it had-
never gave, basically, you never gave your word to him that you would not.
No, I never said anything about
Okay,
that. And let me tell you, the good Lord is my witness. I didn't fire him because of what he said. I fired him from what I saw him doing.
Okay. The other part of this is where you live. Um, my wife and I bought a house in Little Rock. We happen to live right across the street from where you and your wife have a home, but you also have a home here. What can you be a county judge and have a foot in 2 counties?
That's not my home. My wife, 5 years ago, my 2 daughters, my daughter-in-law, and Helen have a restaurant in Little Rock. And for first, she was driving back and forth every day, 7 days a week, because on Mondays when they're closed, they clean up and get ready for the week. And it was such a fortune and such an expense. She thought it would be easier for buy her someplace there so that she could save the money and save the wear and tear on her and her vehicle. So she did that, and she's had that. As far as home, there's no place like home. And there's no place like home for me than Pine Bluff. I've always been in Pine Bluff. It's always been my home. I was born here. My daddy was born here in Pine Bluff. His 2 brothers were born here in Pine Bluff. They had their business here in Pine Bluff, and they died and they're buried in Pine Bluff. I was born and raised here, went to school here. I've got a business. I got 2 businesses here. Been in business for 40 years here in Pine Bluff. I've coached baseball for 35 years. Pine Bluff has always been my home. It always will be my home. And if he thinks I'm not qualified or I'm not able or according to law to be county judge, he can just file suit on me. But
He didn't bring that up.
I've been hearing all these stories about things he's been busting me on the radio about, and I don't know, I don't listen to him. People just call me, you know what he said this morning? I said, no, don't care. But there's no place like home. And not only have I lived here all my life, but I'm gonna die here and I'm gonna be buried here. Just like my sister, my father, my mother, and all the rest of my kinfolk. Now my kids were born and raised here and they live in Little Rock. And I'm going to go up to Little Rock and spend as much time as I can with my kids while I can. But you can ask anybody that's ever worked for me at the road department. First one there, last one to leave, spend all my time. I put in 50, 60 hours a week, and I will continue to do that if I'm fortunate enough to be elected by the people.
Okay, so in lieu of a actual debate, but if we were in a debate, I would say opening remarks. Take a couple minutes and just tell viewers about yourself. A lot of people certainly know you from your history here, but refresh our memory or enlighten the ones that don't know you to that extent.
Well, it's like I said, I'm born and raised here. It's been my home. I love Pine Bluff. I've always loved people. And I tell you, I consider myself different from a lot of politicians because I'm not a politician. I don't want to be a politician. I was elected as a public servant to serve the people, and that's what I've done. I love helping people, and God knows we got people all over this county that need help. And that's one thing that makes me smile and sleep good at night when I know I've done things to help people. And I've always been there, and I've always tried to reach out and touch as many people as I can. And I know that when we did our work at the road department, we went all over the county, not just certain areas where the people with the money lived or the bigger people, the biggest load of people. We went where everybody was. We wanted to reach out and touch everybody in the community. That's just like coaching baseball for 35 years. I had my son, I coached him a couple of years, but the rest of the time I was coaching other kids because I love helping people and I love setting a good example. One thing we need and we're lacking in that political arena is honesty. That's a lost art. And that's something you can check my record. I've always been honest. They've never been or found anything in any way, shape, or form that won't says anything that I was honest. And I can tell you that there are a whole lot of people that can't say that at all. And I cherish my opportunity to be judge, mayor, and alderman.
Can you lean in a little to your political experience? Bring us up through city council and
Yep.
the terms you've had, and
I served on the Pine Bluff City Council for 6 years. And then after
so
I
that
got,
was a 4-year term.
it was
and
a 4-year term, and I got elected after half of my second term. I had 2 years left. I ran for mayor, got elected mayor,
Okay.
served mayor for 4 years. And after I got defeated for mayor, I kind of just went back to work and didn't think anything about ever running for any other office again. And I had some people approach me and ask me if I would be interested in running for county judge. And I never thought about that at that time. And I said, well, let me think about it. And it didn't take me long. I said, I think I might just try that.
So
and
who was the county judge then, and who did you?
Holcomb was the county judge then.
Yeah.
And yeah, but he was finishing up. He wasn't going to run for re-election. And so some people came and asked me if I'd be interested.
So you ran against?
Ivan Whitfield, and there were a couple other people involved in it, but it was me and Ivan mostly.
Did you file as a what? Did you what?
I filed as a Democrat first time when I first ran for county judge as a Democrat.
So there was a Democratic primary, and then
Yes.
and then there was nobody. No
Ted
Republican?
Harden was
Ted Hart.
yes, the
And you
first
beat-
time.
and you beat him.
Yes,
Okay, and then so then was that a 2-year term?
2-year term.
So in 2 years you ran for re-election,
Ran for re-election against Ivan Whitfield.
and you won again.
I won again.
Okay, and then so now you've been there 4 years. Bring us up to.
Oh, after that, I tried to run again, and then this time I ran against Hank Wilkins.
Hank
And
Wilkins.
there was Hank and Whitfield, 3 of us in it, and I won the primary by 2,000 votes, but I didn't get a majority, so we had a runoff, and Hank ended up beating me in the runoff.
So that was still the Democratic primary. All
Yes,
3 of you
yes,
all
yes,
running as Democrats.
yes.
Okay. And then
Hank got removed.
yeah,
Got removed from office, and then they appointed
Mr. Who took over for the?
oh gosh, he was a state representative at one
Not
time.
Calvin Booker.
Booker Clemens.
Booker Clinton. I always
Yeah.
get that. He took over, filled out the term,
Yes,
and then you ran again.
I ran again against Gerald.
Daryl. Okay. And that brings us up to today.
That brings us up to now. He beat
Now-
me by 90 votes.
90 votes. Did was there a recount?
I think I asked for a recount.
That's not many votes. And you didn't lose to Wilkins by a whole
No,
lot
I
more
didn't
than
lose to
that.
Hank, but just a few. Hank was
150 or something.
100. I think it was a little over 103 votes, 100 and something votes.
Yeah. So when you ran against Gerald the last time and he won, were you still running as a Democrat? Was this all happening in the Democratic primary?
In the Democrat primary.
So now you have avoided the primary
Yes,
and by running as
independent.
an independent.
Yes.
Okay. Was there a reason for that? Tactical?
Well, I can tell you this: the reason that I lost the first time to Gerald, I can't tell you how many people told me you need to run as an independent, and I didn't. Well, I didn't get any votes at Redfield, hardly at all.
Because
Or
they
any
all
votes
voted
they
in the
were in the
Republican
Republican
primary.
primary. And so they couldn't vote in the Democrat primary, so I lost all those votes. And I only lost by 90 votes, and I know the JP there in Redfield was running as a Republican. He got 376 votes.
So let's talk about finances a little. Gerald, Mr. Robinson paints a rosy picture of where the county sits right now, and not such a rosy picture of where you left things. $30,000, $60,000 in the bank in reserves, and they've got several million.
I like the biggest difference on that.
Okay.
When I took over in 2013, we had $1.2 million in the general fund. That's it, $1.2 million
Now, okay, in the general fund.
in the general fund.
Now,
We hadn't touched the reserve.
okay, what was in the reserve?
I don't remember, several million. But anyway, I think it may not have been quite that much. But the road department, when I took over, we had $500,000 in the road department fund, that's all. I served 4 years. And when I left, there was a little over $2 million in the general fund, which is about a 60% increase in 4 years, and at $1.4 million in the road department fund, which is almost 3 times as much as when I took over. And besides that, we bought a lot of equipment, we upgraded equipment, and we did a whole lots of work ourselves. We didn't contract it out to anybody else.
So you would say you left the.
I left the county in better shape than when I took over.
This whole interview with you won't be, he said this, what do you have to say?
That's fine.
But there are a few things. I mean, one of the places that, one of the things that he said is they have given people raises and bonuses, and department heads have gotten raises that they haven't seen in a long time, and that under your leadership, you didn't know if you were even going to make payroll.
Well, we managed to always make payroll. We had money left over, and we did not have the money from the casino coming in, that money to fall back on like he did. And there's a lot of COVID money that I think he's gotten, what, $13 million in COVID money? We didn't have any COVID money. And there were a lot of, but you know, he's the best I've ever known at pointing fingers. The absolute best.
So,
oh, and also, excuse me, I want now he's going to start to throw some things. If I'm not mistaken, when I was county judge, the legislative audit filed charges, had the county prosecutor file charges against him for misuse of funds. And, you know, they're the bookkeepers. They check all the work, and they found it, and they brought him to trial. And lo and behold, when he went to trial, well, he and another elected official went to trial, both for the same. He was a sheriff. He was the sheriff.
Yeah. Okay.
And another official there was 2 of them that were brought to trial. He went on trial first, and lo and behold, 2 deputies were on that jury. 2 of his deputies. And I thought supposed to be fair and impartial jury, and it only takes 1 to throw a jury. And he got off. They both got off. And that was misuse of funds, giving people raises and bonuses on money that was not designated for that. But that, you know.
Now what?
And if
what
I'm not
he was talking
mistaken,
about
he's
was
in trouble with a legislative audit again.
Well, if you want, go ahead and talk about that. You brought
Well,
that in.
I don't know much about it. I got a copy of it, and I looked, and there's
You're talking
6,
about the P3,
that,
the 3 buildings.
And then there's $100,000 worth of landscape working that they did, and no contract. I mean, they took no bids on that P3 deal. There's I think 25 cell phones that the county's paid for that don't belong to county employees. And there's a list of other things.
Is that part of the legislative
part of the
audit?
legislative audit.
He mentioned the P3, the audit that, the finding about the way that was put together. And I asked him if that arrangement was above reproach, and he felt like it was. They had an attorney group look at that. You would take exception to that, I take it.
And then there's some other things in there that they said, like the COVID money. There's somebody they gave $25,000 to with no paperwork.
Was that Beau Fontaine's daughter?
I'm not sure. I can't answer that question. It doesn't say it, so I don't know.
Okay. I think she got like a maximum amount. So what makes you better qualified for this job then? I mean, both of you have served in that position. I'm going to ask you that. I'm going to ask you what the county would look like had you been in office these past years. Just take a whack at that.
I'll do that. First and foremost, that there wouldn't be the disarray at the courthouse that there is now with all of the other elected officials in the courthouse. I'm easy to work with. And I care about doing things the right way. And we've got elected officials that sometimes have needs that they have not been getting met here lately. And they've had to cut their staff. And so when you cut your staff and eliminate positions, you can build up cash flow, make yourself look good. But at the same time, some of them are having problems doing the work because they don't have enough people to do their job. If I get elected, if the good Lord blesses me and I'm fortunate enough to get elected, I will work with the people at the courthouse, all the other elected officials, to see that how we can come up to provide what they need to meet the needs, to provide the services that they need to give to the people that they serve in Jefferson County. And, you know, they won't, there's not anybody who ain't gonna outwork me. They never have, never will. And especially when I'm something like being in a position like county judge, I have the responsibility to make sure that we provide the services to what we can to all the people in Jefferson County. Not just a few people, not just friends, but all the people. And I plan on doing that, and I think that there'll be harmony, and I think we'll get along good. I'm gonna talk with, you know, the quorum court now. That's a lot of new members there. I will meet with each and every one of the quorum court members in advance, just like I'm going to meet with all the officers at the courthouse and talk to them and let them know what I want to do, the things I want to do, and I'll be transparent. I won't be doing things behind their back and then bringing stuff to them to approve and not even knowing anything about it. I won't ever give them or ask them to approve a budget without a copy of the budget. I mean, there's just certain things that you have guidelines that you have to follow, and it's just common sense to do. I'm here to help people. I'm not here to hurt anybody.
Do you, what do you see the job of county judges being?
In what regard?
I mean, are you there to lead, or are you there to make a path for other department heads to lead?
I see my position is to be a leader, to lead, and to lead in an example that people will be willing to follow behind. I'm going to work harder, and like I said, being a public servant, that's my job, to serve the people and to work, make sure that they get what we can afford to give them. And I plan on, I'm there. I'm unlike some people. I'm gonna be there every day. And like I did the last time, I was the first one there. I mean, I'd get there, I'd go to the courthouse, I'd get there at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, stay there for a couple hours, look at my paperwork, look at what meetings I had, things that were left over on my desk today, because I usually spend a lot of time out in the field with the road department, talking to people, watching the people, the job that we're doing, listening to the complaints or questions that they might have. I pride myself in trying to be the best possible judge that I can possibly be.
So the previous question was, what would the county look like had you been county judge for the last term? And you know, one of the distinguishing things about the current administration is the creation of these 3 buildings. And I would like to pick your brain on, would you have gone that route? And if not, would we have those 3 buildings now? Or how would we have gotten such structures? Did you see a need for those same structures?
The corner, we did a ton of work on the corners office. He had some problems. He didn't have near enough room, but we just not have the extra money like what he's got now to do that with.
Okay, so put yourself in his shoes, or in the county judge's shoes at the beginning of this term, with the money that came along later. How would you have handled that money? Well, would we have 3 buildings?
If we'd have had those 3 new buildings, I would have got bids on everything, because according to law, anything over $25,000, which it may be a little more now, you need to take bids. And I would give everyone an opportunity to bid on that. And I don't think that it's not just that. I think there's a whole lot of work that's been done without people having an opportunity. I think everybody needs an opportunity.
What do you think of the arrangement with the P3 group?
I don't know much about it. I mean, I can't criticize it, and I can't say it's a good deal, because I don't know anything about it.
What would your top priorities be? What do you see as issues that are pressing?
You know, the top priority is the people, taking care of the people, but the road department, people deserve good roads and good bridges. And that's, I know that there's a little work being done, but you know, I know that we had 2 paving machines. We did our own paving. They sold both of those paving machines, got rid of them. And now they contracted out. The road department doesn't pave any roads. They contract it to somebody. And I don't know what they charge or how much it is, or if it costs more to do that or what, I don't know. Because I don't know how much they're paying for it. But one of the things I'll do is I will try to get us a new paving machine and start paving roads. And, you know, when I first got elected, you got a 2-year term. The first year, you got to learn the job. You got to get out there, and by the time you get going, you got to start campaigning the second year, because you got an election coming up in 3 or 4 months. And so 4-year terms gives you a little time to breathe, a little time to do a whole lot more. And I think there are a lot of things that I left undone with roads and bridges that hopefully we can reach out and make those moves now.
What's a good year of paving? Like, how many miles is there? You remember?
You know, I tell you what, 6 years ago when we were doing it, in fact, it was longer than 6 years, between 6 and 10 years ago, it was $100,000 for a mile. So that's, you know, you got to figure out how much money that you've got to spend on roads to know how much you can do, because you just can't just pave. You got to stay within your budget. But you know, you can do easy 10 miles maybe. But that's not just all you do. We got the crews that do chip sealing of the roads and pothole fixing and cutting grass and cleaning up ditches, putting in culverts. It just encompasses a whole lot of things at the road department.
The sheriff, who has, I'm fairly certain he's a supporter of yours. Certainly not a supporter of Gerald Robinson, I'm
I
saying.
don't think so.
But anyway, he filed a lawsuit against the county judge and the court about them not funding his office. And we had a story a month or so ago saying that he was so low on funding that he couldn't feed the prisoners.
I saw that.
And, you know, like, go over to the commissary and see if you can find something to eat. And anyway, that seemed rather extreme for, did you have a feeling have you talked to him? Do you know maybe how you would have averted something like that? Or
Well, tell me, maybe I'm wrong, or under the wrong impression. I thought that they had the money budgeted, and it just didn't get to him. I think that I was told that the judge held it back. No.
Well, the judge said it was, you know, it was in different accounts, and that they sat down.
Well,
and
he ought to know about different accounts, because he got a bunch of them. A whole bunch.
They got together and got him some money for what he wanted,
Yeah.
but
Tell me something. Let me ask you something. I've heard all this about how much excess money they got. Why would he not go ahead and give them the money if they got all that excess
I would
money?
prefer to be the one asking questions here because I can't.
Well, I mean, really. I mean, you know.
Actually, I did I asked him that question.
I'll tell you, you know, he's getting all over Lafayette. And when I was a county judge, he was raising Cain, screaming and hollering, wanting more money every day. And for what? Who knows?
So when you were county judge, what were your biggest accomplishments?
You know, I'll give you one prime example that it made my day. And it wasn't long after we got started. And like I told you, and I met with all the people at the road department and told them what we were going to do. And I told them that, you know, our job is to serve the people and we want to do everything we can. Well, anyway, I was told before I took office that people on across the river never got any services from the county. Now, that's just what I was told. And about a month or two after we'd started working and doing things, guys from the road department came in one day and they, Judge, can we talk to you? And I went over and said, a group of farmers just stopped us across the river over there, and they wanted us to tell you that they appreciate you annexing them back into the county because they had not seen a road department person in over 7 years. And we were working on roads, and we worked on a lot of roads over there. And, you know, that made me feel good. But, you know, we kind of took off with a recycling program, and we built a new recycling facility over behind Pope Furniture Company. And it was one of those where they can drive in one door and we'd take care of everything. They didn't even have to get out of their car or truck. We'd get, if they opened their trunk, we'd get it out of there for them. And they could just drive right on out the other door. And I can't tell you how many people have told me that how they loved that. And the recycling program grew and grew and grew. It was about 4 times what we did when we took over. And you can make a little money on that. And at the same time, you can help keep your county clean because all that stuff that you take in, it's not left on the roads. And another thing that like we tried to do is we put, when people were working out in the county, we put dumpsters out there because you just couldn't believe the trash it would be laid around. And we tried to prevent that because there's nothing worse than people driving through your city or your county and they see trash everywhere. And when I was mayor, that was a big program I had was volunteer cleanups on weekends, and we did that for, I think it wore about half the community out, the ones that participated in it. But that's something that I'll always pride myself in, is trying to make things better, clean things up.
What about that recycling program? Is it still in gear?
I don't know. I'm sure it is. Now, whether it's to the degree that it was, I don't have a clue.
Who handled that, the recycling end of it? Did Waste Management get in on that? Or?
You know, we would on some of our cleanups, we got them involved. And anytime we needed an extra dumpster or something like that, they would help us. But no, the county is responsible for that.
So, not to belabor the point, but if you drive up and you've got glass and plastic and paper,
everything,
you can leave
we
it
had
all
bins
there.
for glass, paper, plastic, and everything.
And then what happens to it?
We'd accumulate it, and then I had a guy that worked for me that he knew the people to call, and they'd come get it, and they'd pay you so much.
Okay.
Depending on the poundage, how much it was, and it's you know, you'd just be surprised. We filled those big dumpsters up there at the facility there behind Pope all the time. I mean, it was a steady flow of people that were coming in, and we kept it open on weekends, and that's something. And we had let people at the courthouse work on weekends, and they got to get extra money. The recycling would pay them for working on weekends.
Just to watch over
any
it?
volunteer, anybody at the courthouse could work on weekends. We'd get 2 or 3 or 4 a time, and then we get somebody the next week. We'd divide it up so everybody got opportunity to get some money.
So to just
Yes.
keep an eye on that facility.
Yes.
Back to the road department, you had alluded to road work going in places where people had money. Were you saying that's the way it's prioritized now?
No, I don't know. I have no idea. And the reason I say that is because I had a couple of people, want me to do work on their private roads, and they were influential people with money, and I wouldn't do it.
Like a long drive off of a highway, let's say, or a county
road off the highway, along with 3 or 4 houses.
Yeah.
And
one of those roads with the red. It's like this isn't a real road. It's basically
it's not a county road. It's a private road.
drive. Yeah.
Well, anyway, I had one of them just told me right to my face, and well, when you lose, I know the next county judge will take care of me. Well, I said, well, that's good because I'm not. And it's I've seen some of that. That goes on, has gone on, but we would never do that.
I remember back in the 80s doing stories when a flood would come along or how, and it seemed like the county didn't draw much distinction between public and private roads if somebody needed some help. Is that?
Oh, and a tragedy or a catastrophe like that, yeah, we would reach out to help them too. In fact, you know, I guess I'm a lucky son of a gun because my first year, well, and when I'm mayor, I took over after the 2 ice storms had hit. I inherited the ice storm, and I mean, it's the worst ice storm we ever had,
Yeah.
and it was horrible. And to this day, I'd like to get this straight. People, and including my opponents, made some cracks about I broke the city. Well, the city never went broke, and I never took a penny from anybody. But I do know there were Rolex watches and there was money paid, but it sure in the hell didn't go to me. And what I did, stood up and fought for the city. 3.5 years we fought that ice storm before we ever finally got it settled. And the problem was FEMA. They don't want to blame me, but it was FEMA. Before we did one, we had 31 contractors bidding on that job. So, you know, people knew there was money to be made somewhere.
That was the
31.
hauling of fallen limbs and
Taking all that
trees.
stuff out and hauling it off and burying it, or supposed to burn it, but they buried it. But
My vague memory of that was that FEMA didn't think that the paperwork had stood up to scrutiny.
well, I'm going to tell you what happened. And this is FEMA that did it. Before, you know, like I said, Jerry Taylor, the mayor before me, had already set up a group of people, committee to be over it with a project manager in charge of it. And I inherited them, and we worked with them to make sure that we did everything by the book. And we drew up a contract verbatim, everything that we were going to do, and it had the price that the low bidder was going to, what he was going to charge. We had everything in that contract, everything. My administrative assistant took it up to Little Rock where the state officer was in charge up there, and I talked to him on the phone. I said, now I've already been told that you're not going to do what you say you're going to do, and you're not going to pay us, and we're going to get stuck. And so I put in the contract, I put it in there that if for any reason FEMA refuses to pay, that the contractor was responsible for the difference. Well, anyway, we sent it up there, and the man in charge looked it over from top to bottom, and he said it was one of the best contracts he'd ever seen written, and he said, I promise you, you're going to get your money. Well, the first time they sent us a bill in, we sent it up there to get the money sent to us, and they refused to pay it. Said you charged too much.
FEMA.
FEMA, that you charged too much. And I said, how can we charge? We sent it up there to you, and you okayed it, approved it, but now you say you charged it, but it's way too much. You can't charge that much. And that went on for a while. It was horrible. I mean, because you can't fight the federal government. You can't win. And what ended up happening was, you know, I ended up firing the contractor 3 weeks after they started the job because they thought they could cut anything down they wanted to, no matter what. And then I kept telling them that you can't do that. You've got to follow the guidelines and stay within those guidelines. And I think that they had a lot of people from Pine Bluff on their side. But anyway, I fired them. And then next thing I know, they want to sue us. And I said, well, go ahead and sue us. And then the city council, they got together with some members on the city council, and city council called a meeting and decided they were going to settle with them. I mean, we didn't owe them anything. Didn't owe them anything. I didn't think we owed them a dime. But anyway, the city council voted to give them $2.1 million of the city's reserve. $2.1 million. I mean,
The contractor.
huh?
The contractor.
To pay them off, to make them go away. $2.1 million. And I'm telling you, I don't think we owed them. We didn't owe them a penny, not a penny.
Did you ever get any money out of FEMA?
They ended up, the whole thing was for, I think it was $18 a cubic yard. And then they ended up paying 10. I said that's all they would pay, so we got 10. I mean, but then, you know, that's all. And so that's all we were gonna pay. That's all we paid the contractor, the $10. We paid them what they paid us. Okay, but then for some reason, the people on the city council thought that they needed to settle with them. And so,
What would you do differently today?
well, I think probably the only thing I could do different was I wouldn't have hired who they hired. I wouldn't have hired them.
Were they low bidders?
They say they were, but it turned out they weren't.
Did you take bids?
Yeah, we had 31 bidders,
31.
31. And they had the lowest bid based upon the cubic yard cost. But then there was a tipping fee that they had in there for so much. I think it was outrageous, $10 a cubic yard tipping fee. And that jumped the price way up. And that's why FEMA said they weren't going to pay it. But that was in the contract. It was in black and white, the tipping fee and everything. So, we got stuck. There wasn't anything we could do. And then as soon as they paid them, they gave them that $2.1 million, voted on it, had 3 meetings. First 2 meetings, 4-4 vote. So they didn't pass. The third meeting, 2 of them
You
changed.
were mayor
their,
then.
I was mayor. Third meeting, 2 of them changed their vote and gave them the money.
What about these Rolex watches?
No, I didn't. They were there. I can assure you. There were people that got them.
Describe that.
Well, what can I describe? I never got one, never saw them, but there were people that got them.
Like city council members?
I don't know. I really don't know who got them, but I know there were, best I can remember, there were 5 or 6. And I don't know if city council members got them. I can't say they did. I don't know.
Whose
People that were working
palm would
behind the
have been
scenes.
greased? I mean, what position could you, like who would be giving the watches to whom?
I don't know. I never saw it. I just know there were watches there. I saw some watches. I saw some of the watches. I didn't see all of them, but I was told there were 6 of them. Who got them? I don't know. But I tell you what, that contractor, DMC from Fort Howard, Alabama, I wouldn't have chosen. If I had to do it again, I'd make sure they didn't get it. And if I had to do it again, and I called the FBI twice. And begged them to come in and investigate the ice storm. Begged them. And I could not get them to come in. And then later on, after the fact, they told me they were just fixing to come in and start investigating when 9/11 hit. And that killed it. But they had plenty of time before 9/11 to investigate it.
Did the legislative audit ever look into that whole, I mean, you got audited, the city gets audited, that sort of bids and work done
Everything was approved. The money was approved. Oh, and I'll tell you something else about that I don't think people know about it. The city council gave them $2.1 million. Well, I just happened to know for a fact that they had DMC had borrowed $500,000 from Pine Bluff National Bank. And so I went into the treasurer's office and I said, when they passed it, gave him the money, he was going to write that check for $2.1 million. And I said, you write that check for $1.6 million and you write a check for $500,000 to Pine Bluff National Bank. And I told him if he didn't do it, he's fired. And
just to make sure the bank got.
They wasn't going to get the next day when they got their money, they filed bankruptcy. And they left all their subcontractors hanging. And one of their subcontractors sued the city for $1 million. We fought that in federal court and they won.
Even the
subcontractor won.
This was really
Don't ask me how.
Ugly period.
That was horrible. And
it was
FEMA was to blame to start with.
It was just down trees, right?
Yeah.
All over town.
That's everywhere. I mean, the whole town. The first night it struck, I'd already been elected mayor, but didn't take over to January 1st. There was no lights anywhere in the city except the convention center. Yeah. They had that big generator, and that's where everybody went.
I had moved to I was working at the sister paper in Fort Smith at that time, but same storm.
Oh yeah, it was terrible everywhere.
Down, no electricity for days and days and days. I mean,
Well,
the people who lived out away from towns, it was like a month before they got.
The problem was, I mean, what added to it, first one was December 13th. And then on
That's right.
December the 27th, the second one. But during that time, it never got above 30 degrees. Everything was still, when it hit the second time, it was still ice on it from the first time. And it just compounded things.
And Fort Smith, it hit them Christmas morning.
It was horrible. I just
Yeah.
couldn't believe it. But, you know, we fought it and we survived it, but it was not pleasant.
What, you've mentioned the casino money, and they bring quite a bit to the table in the way of tax dollars.
I do.
Um,
We need it.
what would you be doing with that money?
Well, it goes into the general fund. You could put it for roads. You could, help the people that need the people in the office, the ones that got all these people cut. Because I know that I've talked to some of them, and they are really at a disadvantage because, like in tax season, the tax collector, he said he had nobody answering the phone. They didn't have anybody to spare. They were so busy, and he was down 2 or 3 people, and so some people could get their jobs back maybe.
Can you be more specific and just go through the departments and highlight, where you think there are? I assume you've talked to people at the county level.
Yeah.
Where you see people have, because the county judge has been out front about wanting to cut staff and be more efficient and cross-train and so forth. And I take it that you think that he has gone too far and that people are hurting for these positions. Where would you put where would you put those positions back?
I would definitely put some in the tax collector's office. I don't know exactly how many he needs. I know he needs a couple probably. And truth of the matter, I'm big on funding the police. I think we need more deputies. If you'd be shocked on it, I don't know how many are out at night now. But,
How many do they have total? You know how many they have total?
I don't, not now. But I think he's down. And to make sure that people have that assurance of safety, we need to make sure we have enough police
Do you
officers
think
to do it.
people are do you have an example of people, communities that are not being looked after, that are less than safe because deputies, there need to be more deputies?
I don't know how less safe they are, but people on the other side of the river have had people, four-wheelers and stolen and piece of equipment stolen, and it's hard to get people out there because they've got so much going on around the area, they can't make it out there. And I've had lots of, and even now, I get people calling me that, can you help? What's going on? And he said, they know that they're short-handed. They don't have it, but still it doesn't help.
What level of reserve does the county need? The reserve account. Is that the right word for it? Reserve? Basically your rainy day.
Yeah, that's a tough question to say. They, probably anywhere 2 million at least, somewhere in that area. But then again, everything is getting to be so much more expensive. Everything. You can't find people because you can't pay them. And you just, people are not going to work like they used to go. They're just not working. I mean, I think that somehow we've set a trend that makes people stay home. And that all those people hadn't come back to work.
Yeah. What does the reserve have?
I don't know how much it has now. It's been so long. We never had a whole lot
What
when I was
does putting money in a reserve have to do with hiring people? You would not put as much in there and you would try to pay people more?
Well, I don't know how much money they're actually getting now from the casinos. I think maybe a little over $1 million a year. And I think that I talked to the treasurer, and she said that they were told or somehow thought that at some point in time they'd be getting $3 million. That's a big difference. If you had $3 million, you could take half of it and put it in reserve, and then half of it get put out there to use. And I know the road department can always use money. because they've got so much to do.
How many employees do you figure the county is down in your estimation?
I don't know. I know he let a bunch go. I don't know how many they're down now. I don't know.
When you ran for office, I'm not sure when this story came out, but you were pretty seriously concerned about the drop in population in Jefferson County.
I think we all are.
And, it seemed like at one time people were just getting out of the city and they would move to, just outside of the city.
Move into the county.
Into the county. But I don't know if that's the case anymore. It seems like they're just vanishing from Jefferson County.
I think you're right.
The city has got the school district's got its own issues with that because every child has, $7,000 to $8,000 attached to them in state money. So every, 10 kids and, it adds up. The city with tax dollars, same thing with the county. What as a county judge, I mean, you had said in this story, and you may remember it, but that we've got to come together and stop this bleeding. What did you do in that regard? What could you do? What would you do?
You got to find what's causing this. And if schools are always one of the first things that people look for. Do you have good school systems? Do you have good teachers? I mean, education is at the forefront, and I don't know. A lot of people have complained about the school system, and they consolidated supposedly Dollaway and Pine Bluff High, but they still Dollaway operates and Pine Bluff High operates, and I was under the impression that they were going to be together, and I thought that would help the Zebra football team to get the players from Dollaway, because Dollaway's always had good athletic programs out there, but they're not. They play their own schedule. Well, I thought that was mandated, and I guess I'm wrong because it hadn't happened, and and I think that we need to clean Pine Bluff up and need to clean Jefferson County up. We got to instill pride back into people, and I don't know. Hopefully, it's not too late. I mean, it's if you just go around and look in Pine Bluff at some of the areas, especially the homes, in some different areas of the town, it looks like a forest growing up there.
So when people move away, and if they abandon their property,
no,
that's just there
stuck
goes
with
tax dollars.
That's right.
What other revenue streams can a county create to add to your income? I mean,
the one thing that always comes to my mind is recycling. Just build your recycling program up. Try to be, and when I first got involved in it, I wanted us to be the pride of the state. I wanted to be the best recycling program in the state of Arkansas. And I went up to Conway, and the lady up there at that time was from Pine Bluff. She had moved to Conway, and she was running the recycling. They had just unbelievable facility up there. They had their own trucks, they had their own people, and it was big. It was really big, and they talked to me and gave me a lot of ideas on how they got to where they were, and they got everybody involved in it, and it just grew and grew, and I hadn't been up there in a long time now, and that lady passed away. She had cancer and died, but she had moved from here. She'd worked for me when I was mayor, and she's really a fantastic person, and I think there's an opportunity there. Now I don't know if it'll go over, but we can try. I mean, the one thing we can't do is just sit back and let things happen. You got to go out and make some things happen.
Are there any industrial prospects for the county that you could encourage to make a home here? I haven't seen any announcements in a while, but Jefferson County doesn't get the nod very often
No.
when it comes to, big company coming to Jefferson County. Why is that? Why do we not get to play in that, in that, and then what could you do to facilitate something like that?
One of the main problems that some of the people that represent these companies have said in the past is we don't have a trained workforce. And that's something that, and I think it was a mistake when they did away with the VOTEC school. And because, if not just for that reason, but for, VOTEC now,
You think CARC is not filling that gap?
I don't know if they're not like they used to. Because that used to be a VOTEC school. That's what it was. And
it goes back a few titles ago, doesn't it?
Yeah, I know. But they used to teach them how to be a mechanic, a carpenter, a welder, and all that stuff. And welders and stuff now, all
They
that
still
stuff pays good
teach
money.
some of that, maybe all of that, but I don't know if they teach you how to rebuild a transmission in a car, but
They teach you a little bit of everything out there in different departments. They had some good people, but that's been a long time, and I don't know where they're doing that now, and I don't know how far it is or how much we've fallen out of that loop now, because we've we had, like you said, the last time and I don't know, maybe you know more about this than I do, that big $1 billion project over by Redfield. I've heard it's still in the makings. And, that would be the biggest thing to hit in the state of Arkansas in a long time.
we had a story about that a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
We covered an industrial development meeting here in town, and it's still there.
I know it's there. Because I remember when I was county judge.
It's not there, but it's still on the...
It's still being talked.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they've got the money to do it. I think he was looking for, at one time, that's been a while, he was looking for investors. Now, I don't know where that stands now or what, but something like that could be the foundation to really, really make a big hit here.
But then that, the one that was going into, was it Arkadelphia?
That
Pellet?
Well, at one point in time, they were going to build some kind of paper mill over in Arkadelphia.
Yeah.
Or I think it's a paper mill. But I called over and talked to somebody. It's been a while, and they said that was kind of in limbo. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. Anything that happens in that close to us, we always feel a little bit of it.
That was going to take a lot of timber.
Yeah.
So is there an opportunity for tourism in the county?
Well, with the casino, that's it's attracting a bunch of people now. I mean, I don't know where all they're coming from, but they're not just all in Pine Bluff. I know a lot of people from Pine Bluff go there, but they're not all from Pine Bluff. I know they got the what is it, Smoke on the Water coming this weekend. I remember back when I was mayor, Smoke on the Water was big. They had some big crowds out there on the weekends. People from all over came for that. And that
I read that it hadn't been here for 7
years.
7 years.
But when they restarted it, they did it not on it still wasn't as big as what it was when they originally started. But this could, with the casino footing it could grow.
I didn't realize it had been absent that long, but.
Yeah, but it could grow. It could really get big because they got somebody behind it with money. Now, the life expectancy on the casino is how much? How long?
I guess it's as long as they're taking money in.
I know, but they say that there's, 7 to 10 years that they reach that, then they kind of.
Oh, you mean their viability, not the structure.
Yeah, I'm in the money flow.
Money, yeah. They said they were going to break ground this year
on the hotel.
On the hotel, but
that'll be good.
We're getting close to November.
That'll be good if they do. I hope they do. I mean, because that will just enhance.
Hotel and convention. There's some convention element to it too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Meeting rooms.
Concerts. Sporting events like fights and stuff like that, professional fights, wrestling, stuff like that attracts people. they can't do anything but help.
You know, one of the things that the city council, well, actually, Joni Alexander and I think Ivan Whitfield worked on, was a racetrack out in the county. Does that hold any interest to you? Does that seem like a viable thing to pursue?
What kind of racetrack? I mean, cars.
Cars.
You know, I remember a long time ago, Lusby was going to do that out there. And he couldn't get the city council to approve to give him the land. And he was going to put up a whole bunch of money and do that. And he had the drawings and he had it all and it looked good. And, you know, if you got a hotel for them to stay, a good hotel, that'll just help. And then they got the casino to go to attract. It might work. It might work.
What's your relationship like with elected officials around the county, other mayors?
You around here?
Yeah.
Well, you know, I've always worked good with all of them. I've never turned them down on anything that I could provide that they needed.
Do you think the county, you're not familiar with the county finances right now, are you?
No, I'm sure not. I know that I've talked to the treasurer and she said they're doing good. That
Okay.
They've got money.
They have the amount of money that they have is apparently enough to keep a good reserve in the bank. But I wondered if you had any thoughts on how much. We had a caller, a gentleman call, and because we invited people to offer questions for this, and he said, ask the candidates if they're comfortable with how much the county owes. And I took it to mean that some of that was equipment that it has purchased and probably the commitment that the county has made on these buildings. Because the way that works is that the P3 group puts up the money, builds these things, and then the county pays that. And at the end of 30 years, the building is the county. So basically, I guess they're acting as the bank, but then the Quorum Court had to issue bonds to make sure that there was a clear line of repayment to them.
There again, you probably know more about that than I do, but I've been told by a couple of people that the county's going to owe between $17 and $20 million, and that they've already
right.
given them, I think, $1.7 million. And
I think the Simmons Bank gave them $1 million for a couple of those buildings. Why do you see yourself as the better qualified between you and your opponent?
how can I say that and be diplomatic? First and foremost, I know I'm always there.
Are you saying that he's not?
I'm absolutely saying he's not.
As in, I'll just stay home today?
Well, I know when I was county judge, I never could find him in his office, period. And I've heard that he's not there very often. Now, there again, I'm listening to people that are telling me that that work up there that he's not there that often. But you know, but I'm always available. Always will be available. And I'll always be there, either there or the road department, or out on the road working with the road department. I spent a lot of time out on the road working the road department, helping them, talking, seeing what's going on, talking to the people. And you'd be surprised how many people come out and talk to you when you're working on the roads. Come out and offer you some tea or lemonade or some sweets or things like that. But that's part of getting to know people and letting them know you care. And I genuinely, how can I say this? I know everybody will get, no, I don't. I can assure you that he is the most arrogant, egotistical, self-serving, vindictive bully I've ever had the displeasure of knowing.
Just tell us what you think.
I just did. Hey, He's been running me down. I'm just saying that because, and if you don't believe me, you just go up there and talk to the people at the courthouse. And if they're not scared, they'll tell you. That's not me speaking, not just me. But, and you think about why I said that. This man threatened me twice. He tried to bully me before I ever got elected. He was vindictive, told me he'd get even with me. Arrogant, for somebody arrogant, you have to be arrogant and egotistical to say that to somebody you don't even know.
Okay, so what else about you? You're gonna show up for work, you're gonna
I'm
be
gonna
there.
be there. I'm gonna be there, and
What
I'm
else?
gonna help people. I'm gonna help people like they've never been helped before. If you talk to people that actually worked up there, and I think they'll tell you that, you know, I genuinely care about Pine Bluff and Jefferson County. And I've called the mayor's office, and I didn't get to talk to her. She's hard to get in touch with, but I left
Mayor
her.
Washington?
Yes, I left her a message that you know, if I'm lucky enough to be elected county judge, I want her to know I'll work with her in any way I can to help her, help in the city, so that we can make the city and the county better. Because I can tell you, when I was the mayor, the county judge didn't give me the time of day. He thought he was too good.
Who was the county judge at that point?
Jack.
Why not?
I don't know. I didn't know him. I mean, I knew him. I used to play basketball with him, but I think he just had it out for the city. He just didn't care, I guess. Because I know I met with this, you know, I
He
guess
was county judge for a long time. He was county
Oh, I
judge.
know. And when I was mayor, he'd made a whole lot of different comments about me, and you know, and I don't understand. And I went and met with him. I said, "What are you doing? Why are you doing it?" He said, "Well, I tell you, I know you're running for re-election, so I'm not going to say anything else. Here, I'm going to keep my mouth shut." Next day, there was an article in the paper about him busting me about something. I mean, you know, but anyway.
When you were mayor?
Yeah. I don't know what it was. You know, he just, somebody had to tell me. Maybe they know him better than I did. But he wasn't helpful, I'm going to say that.
Are there regulations against hiring relatives in the county?
You're not supposed to.
Can you define what those are, and has the county lived up to those expectations?
It's just, you know, you're just not supposed to hire your kinfolk at the county. That's a no-no.
Period?
Period.
Or is it don't hire somebody who is going to be answering to a relative? I mean, if you hired somebody in the real estate office and somebody over here in another office.
You're not supposed to hire any kinfolk. Not supposed to. And I'm not having kinfolk to hire them, but I'm not saying that I'm trying to think that ever come up. I think it did one time or something that somebody told them they couldn't hire them.
I actually wrote this question down. I'm going to ask it. Can you say anything nice about your opponent? I guess not. I'll take that as a no. So what got you, you said you had, you were born and raised here,
Yes.
gone to school here. Tell us about your professional life. You said you had 2 businesses.
Yes.
Tell us a little about that, and then tell us how you got into politics.
Okay.
What kind of led you?
Okay. A company called Arkansas Marketers and Applied Energy. We started at about 1978, 77. We're small. Always have been small. And
Was that put you right out of high school?
No. I started off at 601 Main Street service station after I graduated from college. I worked in the service station business for 6 years. And then
Whose service station was that?
Citgo. It was my mother-in-law, to be mother. She wasn't my mother-in-law then, but Miss O'Keefe. Wilkins Oil Company owned it.
That's where the little plaza is now, right?
Yeah. That was my stomping ground for 6 years. And you know, It was hard work, and I loved it though. And I like seeing people. And you saw a little bit of everything. Yeah, lots of people, and we ended up, started into. We had I bought a front end lineman machine. I went to school in North Carolina for a week to learn how to do front end work, and you never picture me lining cars, but I lined a ton of cars in my 6 years, and I had a mechanic. We did mechanic work, and
So when did you graduate high school?
I graduated in '67.
Okay.
Yep, '67. And then I went to college, and then I quit a couple times, and I finally realized. Now I went 2 years to UAPB. And I realized, if you actually studied a little bit and went to class, that's the truth. I mean, I woke up one day and realized, hell, if I just go to class and study, I can pass. And I did good. I mean, I made 3-point there for 4 or 5 semesters in a row. And but I finally knuckled down and got my degree, and I was certified.
What's your degree in?
Business ed and social studies. I was certified to teach.
Certified?
To teach.
Oh,
I got
okay.
my teacher's license. Sure enough.
Did you ever teach?
No. I tell you, I did my teaching school, my practice teaching at Whitehall.
Yeah.
And I went out there. And,
which wasn't much of nothing in those days, was it?
No, it really wasn't. But I think Bert Honey was the principal. I don't know if you remember him.
No, I don't remember that name.
But anyway, and I was thinking seriously about teaching, and then back-to-back days at Whitehall, 2 fights broke out in the classroom. The first day, this big old monster of a kid, he grabbed this fella and slung him out of his desk and was choking him to death. So help me God. I said, and I literally took everything I had to grab that big son of a gun and throw him off that kid. I grabbed him and took them both down to the principal's office.
This is when you were practice teaching.
I was practice teaching. He looked at him and put a knot on his head. But anyway, they got 3 days detention home. I said, what? Didn't call anybody's parents. 3 days detention home. I said, and that kind of shocked me. Because I broke in line going to high school one day, and I got 3 licks. And I'm talking about the biggest coach they had, and lifted me off the ground, all 3 licks. And they just got 3 days detention hall for fighting. And then the very next day, in a different class, 2 girls got into it. And I'm telling you, I'd never seen 2 girls fighting, so I didn't. And they were fighting, and I didn't go between them. I called for help and got them separated, and they got 3 days detention hall. And I said, something not right here. So
Suddenly teaching didn't look so hard.
That didn't look too good.
Yeah, I'll go back to aligning cars.
Yeah, well, anyway, after that, I went into, and the oil company was bought by Knox Nelson. He bought the oil company, so I went to work with him, and he's the one that's got us into the paint business. And then from the paint business, I met some people and got into the filter business, and we started selling industrial coatings for like paper mills, chemical plants, and things like that, and hydraulic components and parts. And that sold the paint under Arkansas Marketers and the hydraulic components under Applied Energy. And we were real small and everything, but we grew, and somehow we've managed to stay in business now for a little over 40 years.
So you're still in that same...
Yeah, I'm still in. And see, that's another thing. I got a new truck in 2020, and that was COVID year, and I didn't do much traveling. I traveled a bunch. And now in 2022, I got 175,000 miles on that truck. I travel, I go Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Texas, and wherever I can find a customer. And I travel and see them. But anyway, it's been a lot of fun. But
so what do?
I sell.
You've had to work through this in your political career,
Yes,
but what do you're not going to be traveling 175,000 miles?
No, I'm gonna, if I get lucky, I'll probably just either shut it down completely, sell it, shut it down.
Well, what'd you do when you were county judge before?
I I let my people inside handle it for me. I had another person that I have now that helped call on the accounts and things like that, because over the years, I've just developed a good relationship with the people, and they've stayed with me through all that.
Right.
And I didn't get to see them, but I had sent a rep over there with them, and most of them stayed with me. But I'm not going to do that this time.
You're not.
No.
You just sell it,
I will.
and you said you had two businesses.
At Arkansas Marketers and Applied Energy, two different companies, two different businesses. One of them's paint, one of them's hydraulics.
Oh, I see. Paint supplies, I
Yeah.
guess, for painting.
Painting structural steel
Structural
or
steel, okay.
any kind of substrate that need to be protected from the environment. Because like in the paper mill, if you just put steel out there, it won't take it long, it'll rot away unless you have something on top of it, a coating to protect it.
Okay.
That's why it's called a protective coating.
So way back when you ran for city council,
Yep.
what got you going in that direction? You
now
were
this-
happily working, I guess.
You will
Married.
be shocked when I tell you what happened. When I think I was in junior high, whenever, let me think, who was the mayor then? Ophi Lights and Mayor Franks, those two, way back a long time ago. And for some reason I used to watch, and I told a bunch of my friends, I can do that.
As a mayor.
Yeah, I said, I can do that. I mean, he don't work hard. I mean, and I'd even forgotten I'd said that, but I'd always thought about being mayor when I was a kid. But as I got older, I'd forgotten about it, didn't think about it. But
Because we always think about, I'll be a fireman or whatever.
yeah, I know. That's right. That's what I thought about that. And then I just, I forget who it was that was, Bob was the alderman. He was going out. Been there forever. Ever.
Atkinson?
Who?
Atkinson?
That's it, Bob Atkinson. Yeah, sure enough. And I talked to him, and I said, I think I might just run for your position. And I did. I ran against Ron Turchie, and I won. And then I got reelected for another 6-year term, and then in the middle of it,
Not 6 years.
Taylor was going out.
Not
4-year
6
term,
years.
excuse me.
Yeah.
4-year term. But then Jerry Taylor was going out and retiring, going to run for state
State
rep or-
office.
yeah, whatever. And then I said, well, I'll just run for mayor. And I did. And gosh, I don't know how many, 4 or 5 people in the race. And Foster won, Jack won by 2,000 votes. I finished second. And I think Brummett was third, and somebody was fourth, and somebody was fifth. But he didn't get a majority, so we had a runoff. And I beat him by 900 votes in the runoff,
Jack Foster.
Jack Foster.
If you were serving under Jerry Taylor, I mean, that period was, that was a rough period in
Yep.
terms of racial harmony.
Yes, it was. It was.
Weren't there 4 African Americans and 4 whites on
Whites.
the
Yes, sir.
council? Were you on there with J.C. Jeffries?
Yep.
And
I was. LeVert Blunt,
LeVert
J.C.
Blunt.
Jeffers, Irene Holcomb, and Jackie Kirby.
yeah,
And it was me and Dale Dixon and Bill Brummett and Wayne Easterly.
and it may have a couple of those period where basically the black alderman out. They just walked out, as I recall. You remember those? Remember that? I think it was over the
There was something
Jerry
that some-
Taylor and hiring a police chief.
I think there may have been several that walked out. I mean, I think JC did.
Yeah,
And I tell you another thing about that. I was new, and I learned a lot by mistakes and things like that. Learned a whole bunch. And when Jerry retired, I went up to him and face to face and apologized to him because I said, I didn't have any idea what you were going through. I didn't realize what you were going through. Because I got elected after him.
I'm not sure J.C. Jeffries would have felt the same way with Jerry Taylor.
You know, they really got along at most of the time. They really did.
Did you learn anything from that period?
Yeah, I learned that, you know, you got to listen to people and you got to work with people. Black, white, green. We're all in for the same reason, supposed to be. And that was you know, I got along with all of them. I did. I mean, I didn't try to act like I knew more than they knew, because I didn't. They all knew more than I did. And I would talk to all of them and try to pick their brains and figure out, you know, just what's going on. But I enjoyed working with them. It was a tough time because it wasn't so much the people on the city council that were causing problems. It was the people out in the audience that were causing all the problems, all the heckling. And they were putting pressure on everybody. It was a rough time. It was really a rough time.
Does, you know, my memory of that period, it was that everything broke down along racial lines. It would be a 4-4 vote on today
most
being
of the time.
Tuesday.
That's most of the time it would. It sure would. Now, I went the other way. I did.
Do you think that this county race, this county judge's race, does it break along racial lines?
I hope not. But, you know, I can't say it's not. You just never know. I hope not. I mean, I think that's the way my opponent may want it, to assure him victory. Okay. But I don't know. It's hard to say. It really is. But I know I've got a lot of people in the black community that like me, and I think they're going to support me. And I look forward to working with everybody. And I look forward to having an opportunity to do some things that will help the people in Jefferson County.
So in the ways of a debate, had this been a debate, this would be my invitation to you to say something as a final comment. So you can take a couple minutes to tell people why they should vote for you.
Well, I just hope that the people would put their trust and faith in me. I'll ask the people, don't vote for Dutch King. Vote for yourself. Vote for the person you think will serve the people in Jefferson County better, that'll work hard for the people, that cares about the people and wants to see Jefferson County get better and better, wants to help on the roads, wants to help on the bridges, wants to work with the people at the courthouse to make things better. I love Pine Bluff, I love Jefferson County, and I hope the people will give me an opportunity to put that to work for them.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Mr. King.
You're
Appreciate
quite welcome.
it. Good luck to you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.